Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Dev Mentor Dave channel, here live streaming on YouTube and Twitch. Welcome back to the Workday recap, where we take things from our Workday and talk about them, whether it's something in your journey or something in my journey. And hopefully it's beneficial to you as we discuss these things, or we just take questions, or we just talk about anything random that somebody comes up with on the chat. So if you happen to be watching live, jump in the chat, say hello. If you want to say something to me or have a question for me, type at DevMentorDave, and that way I just see it. It pops up a little bit differently in the chat, and I'll be able to see that, recognize it, and hopefully answer your question or respond to your mockery. One of the two, whatever it is. So as I'm sure Ming will probably be in here not too long to mock me as Grandpa Dave, as he usually does. So we'll see. But anyways, if you are watching live, jump in the chat, say hello. I do have something that I will talk about if we don't have any other questions, or we don't have something else that happened in your day. But again, this is for you guys. It's not for me. The opportunity for you guys to ask questions and get answers, or at least opinions based on my experience as a developer and now as a director of software engineering, which is my current title. So whatever that's worth. But anyways, been a dev for 20 plus years. Most of that, half of that probably actually getting paid for it. So if you have a question, whether it's about writing code, whether it's about getting a job, whether it's about staying in your job, dealing with difficult people, all those types of things, jump in the chat and ask your question. But today, it's interesting. There are a lot of things in development where you almost are like, duh, everybody knows that, right? And to some degree, my topic for today, for my Workday recap, is kind of one of those duh moments as well, but it's one of those things that sometimes you have to be reminded of once you've been doing development for a long time. And there's Ming, youthful Grandpa Dave. Thanks. So one of the things that's interesting about being a developer and gaining experience as a developer is, over time, you learn lots of different things. You learn lots of different ways of doing things. You learn lots of different frameworks and languages and all kinds of tools and tweaks and shortcuts and things like that. And you also learn, like patterns and best practices and things that other people do that maybe you begin to say, well, maybe I should, start learning that, or I should start doing things that way. And so you kind of get into a rut of thinking certain ways or doing certain things as a developer. And over time, it can be really easy to fall into those paths. And those paths may not have started out bad, but they might be leading you into something that really is not the right direction for you to go. And I had a little bit of a reminder of that today. So I was on a phone call with one of my clients today, and they were telling me that they had some new project that they were integrating with the application that we're developing for them. And they were explaining kind of how they were doing some things with it and some tools that they were using that are available now on the internet. And as I was listening to them, I kept thinking about not really their project, but thinking about another project that I'm working on. And the thought just occurred to me, that is a really simple way of doing that. And I started thinking about all the things that I was doing on another project and all the plans that I had made and all of the interactions with Claude and the arguments with Claude and working with Claude and ChatGPT and trying to figure out the best way to develop this thing that I need to develop. And as I was listening to them explain their solution for this totally different project, I just realized, man, I am really like overthinking this other application. I'm really overthinking. I'm making it much harder than it needs to be. I'm maybe sometimes that happens a lot with abstraction. We get to where we add way too much abstraction into an application because we've bought into this concept that abstraction is good, which in many cases it is, but only when you need it. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to abstract stuff that you don't need to be abstracting. So that wasn't exactly the issue that I was dealing with, but as I was evaluating what I was doing on another project, I'm like, man, I really am way over engineering this application or this piece of this application. And that's something that the more you get into the dev world, the more you will find yourself starting to go down that path where you have the tendency to over architect certain aspects of an application or even the application itself. Because one of the things we like to do as developers is we like to future proof the applications that we develop. We like to try to, or at least think we're future proofing the applications that we're developing. We like to try to make sure that what we're building is going to last and what we're building is going to be easily used to build on top of instead of just being replaced. Because frankly, most of us, when we look at somebody else's code base, we are like, I don't want to touch that. Let's just rewrite it. Let's just rewrite it. Like most devs really just want to rewrite everything because they want to do it their own way. And so we kind of fight against that next developer by wanting to build something that should be easy to use, easy to add on to, easy to integrate. And sometimes we spend so much trying to create something that is quote unquote future proof that we way over engineer something, we way over architect something and add way too much abstraction and other things that just really are not necessary for minimum viable product. And honestly, most applications that you develop probably won't get out of the minimum viable product stage because there's so much more that goes into the success of a product than just the application that you built. There's marketing, there's business plans, there's customer service, there's so many other things that determine whether or not a business is successful with the software that you build for them. And so we need to be careful to use the acronym that, we all know what KISS, right? KISS acronym. Keep it super simple or keep it simple stupid, or whichever version you like, right? And it's easy for us to forget that, especially the longer you've been a developer. You've seen a lot more things. You've seen a lot of problems in software, and you want to try to solve all the problems, not just the client's problems, but you want to try to solve all the problems in one shot in the MVP. And that really most of the time is not necessary. MVP is minimal for a reason. It's minimum viable product, right? And so we have to constantly be fighting this desire to over architect, to make everything perfect right from the beginning. And I just realized, just listening to a different client, that over on this other project, I was just way overthinking what we were doing, and there were much simpler ways to do what I was trying to do, and they were going to save me a lot of time. So I just want to encourage you, as you're learning, as you're growing, don't just assume that the way your senior developer does it is the best way, right? Think about the principle of keeping it simple and do everything you can to keep things focused on what's the simplest, easiest way to create that minimum viable product, because you can always go back and refactor. If you have a successful product, this is one of the things that people don't understand. Companies that have successful products will have money to invest and make them better, right? Now, I'm not saying that we should put out trash, all right? Let me get that very clear. I'm not saying that we just create junk software. What I'm saying is we create what is necessary for them to start making money, right? That to me is what minimum viable product is. We create what is necessary for that client to start making money, because most of the time it's either an external app that they're reselling, or it's something that they're using internally to increase their productivity and so that they can make more money. If you have software that you've developed and you're making money with that software, it's much easier for you to go back and say, okay, let's make this better. And if you tell them up front, look, we're gonna do the minimum viable product. We're gonna get you exactly what you need to start making money. We're not going to put a bunch of bells and whistles in it. We're not going to worry a whole lot about technical debt. We're going to try to do things well, but we're not going to be super concerned about making sure we have no technical debt. I know there's people that are going to blast me for that because they do it all over the place on LinkedIn. And I'm sorry, but they're lying to themselves if they think they have no technical debt. They're just, everything has technical debt. So the moment you release a product, you already have technical debt because something else has come out between that point in time, the time you started and the time you release, that even just version changes of the packages that you're using in your application, you're already behind, right? So everybody has technical debt, regardless of what anyone says. So we need to be careful to not overthink what we're building. We need to create the right thing for that moment and not try to future-proof every single thing as we're going through it. And if we try to build something that is perfectly scalable right now, we're going to be over-engineering something. We need to build something that works for what we're doing at the moment. And so that's something that as a senior developer, we constantly need to be reminding ourselves of. And as a junior developer on your journey, you need to make sure that you are protecting yourself, guarding yourself, making good habits for yourself right now to help you avoid that. Will you avoid it completely? No, because you're going to work with senior developers. You're going to work with lead developers who are going to encourage you to think about the future. They're going to encourage you because that's just the mindset that we have. And so you're going to have to maybe give in a little bit sometimes to what they're wanting you to do, but you're going to have to also maybe even have a little bit of an argument, maybe even help them be aware of their own idiosyncrasies, their own tendencies to try to over-engineer something to future-proof something that may never even see that future. Most software barely even gets built, let alone actually is successful and productive. So we want to build software that is successful and productive. There's nothing more discouraging for a developer, especially if you're a single developer, a freelancer. There's nothing more discouraging than building something, putting a lot of effort into something, even if you get paid for it, and then find out the company or the individual, whoever it is, doesn't actually use that software. It's like you almost feel guilty taking any money that you did take for it, because it's like, if I built something and you didn't find it useful, it feels like it was a waste of my time, even if I got paid. It was a waste of my time and effort and energy and desire to build something really well that you can use. And so that's our desire. We want to build something good, but we need to not waste our time building something excessively good when we don't know if the product is even going to actually work at the end of the day for that company, for their use case. And that doesn't necessarily mean we built a bad product. It just means they may not have known what they were really doing, or they may not have known what they really needed, or they just, business-wise weren't very savvy, So there's lots of different reasons why a business would fail, or why software wouldn't be successful for them, why it wouldn't be used. But that's not really our fault. Our job is to build the software that our clients want us to build. And we need to do that, especially initially, to the MVP, so that we're not over-engineering things and wasting a bunch of time, really, and their money, building something that isn't actually necessary for launch. So just an encouragement to you guys as junior developers, as mid-level developers, maybe senior level developers, to make sure that you're not getting caught up in over-engineering your MVPs, but that you're really, really, truly staying with the minimum viable product. All right. Sorry, Ming, I saw you typing, but I was too busy monologuing, so there you go. Let's see. I'm gonna do your more recent ones first. Have the same experience. Tend to love to think over engineer my coffee ordering MVP till I asked ChatGPT for ideas. Then it looked quite simple and straightforward. I tend to overthink building features because I want everything fully optimized. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that desire is not wrong. Okay, I want to say that the desire to make something really good is not wrong. The question is it necessary for the time being? right? So if I need something fast, just use it for now, and then then optimize later because it's necessary to optimize at the start. Because then the MVP will no longer end up on technical debt. Yeah, it'll just take longer. You'll have technical debt no matter what. So build the basic thing that needs to be built. Absolutely. Let's see. Earlier, let's see. Ming says, "Why do companies expect you to know everything on the junior developers?" Because I have the core tech stacks. Trying to not market myself as a junior in this market. 10 years ago, I probably would, as it was a bit different ball game. Now, I agree with that. I think just even based on the things that you've talked about that you're working on, that you've developed, um, I would say you're probably a mid-level developer. Excuse me. Got all the way through the monologue without yawning. And there's just something about these afternoons. I get real yawny, if that's a word. Is yawny a word? I don't think it's a word. Oh well. So it really goes back to this, Ming. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is not saying that the client or the company is evil, right? That's certainly not what I'm saying. This is just reality. And it's reality for all of us, right? We all want to get the most for the least amount of money. All right. So if a company can hire somebody in at a junior level salary and they can get mid-level experience out of them, and then, I mean, that's a win, right? It's a win for the company. The company doesn't have to pay as much. They get more than expected for that level of knowledge and experience, and it's a win. I would say, excuse me, I would say even in many cases, it's still a win for whoever gets the job because you have a job, right? And I'm not saying that to be unkind or flippant about it, because I am somebody who does interview, who does hire. I want to be careful to not be flippant about the candidate side. But on the other hand, if you're willing to work for a certain amount of money, then you're willing to work for a certain amount of money, right? So I would not view it necessarily as them trying to take advantage of you. I would view it as them trying to find the best deal for them as a company. And if what they're offering works for you, then it works for you. You know, I think we need to be careful about getting wrapped up in specific terminology and specific titles. At the end of the day, really the question should be, can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And am I willing to do the job for the amount of money that they're going to pay me to do the job? And I think there's something to the whole title that we get a little wrapped around the axle on. And I think we need to take a step back as employers. We need to take a step back as developers, as candidates, and we really need to understand that this is a negotiation, right? The title at the end of the day doesn't matter. What matters is, can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And am I willing to do the job for what they're willing to pay? When I got my first real job, I say real job because I worked for my brother for 3 years. I was technically a freelancer for him, so it wasn't really a real job. In fact, he told me when we didn't have any more work, he was like, "You need to go get a real job." So there you go. So my first real development job, working for a development company, I came in they offered me less than I was making for my brother. Now I didn't have a job. And so for a guy that had 3 kids and a wife and a house and a mortgage and, I didn't have car payments, but, I don't remember if I saw a car payment or not, but anyway, the point is I was willing to take what they were willing to offer. I knew that I could do the job, and I was willing to do the job because I wanted that job. I wanted to be able to do development work. That was my goal. And so I was willing to take less money with the hopes that I would be able to prove that I could do more and earn more. And I did over the next couple of years. But I was willing to take a pay cut and in order to get the job. Now, does that mean, and again, I've talked about this before, I was known as the WordPress guy, which in that part of the industry and in that company was, I wouldn't say that they looked down on me necessarily, but it wasn't viewed as a real developer job, even though I was actually doing real development work. I was actually building themes and plugins and things like that. So it was real development as opposed to a lot of WordPress users these days. But at the end of the day, I was willing to do the job. I knew how to do the job, and I was willing to make the money. And it didn't matter to me if they thought of me as part of the creative team. And it didn't matter to me if they thought of me as just the WordPress guy. It was kind of funny when I was introduced as that by our technical architect one day. But he actually told somebody I knew on the team. He's like, "This Dave." They said Dave's just the WordPress guy, but he actually knows more than that. So, and we weren't working on WordPress at the time. But so it's, it really doesn't matter what people call you. And I think we get too wrapped up in titles. Companies use titles more to figure out where your skill set is and to figure out where your pay scale is. And at the end of the day, as a candidate, my goal is to get a job doing the thing that I love doing or that I want to do, right? And hopefully make enough money to support me, or if I can make more and be able to save and things like that, awesome. Like, that is my goal when I'm looking for a job. I'm looking to support my family. I'm looking to hopefully get an increase if I can. Thankfully, I've been able to get an increase every time I've changed jobs, whether it was by my own power or somebody letting me go. I've been very, very blessed to have that ability, but that doesn't always happen. Well, except for that first one. That doesn't always happen though. And so I think we need to kind of set aside the mindset of, I need to be hired in as this type of person. At the end of the day, you're going to do whatever it is the company thinks you are able to do. If the company sees in you leadership qualities and ability to manage a project, they're going to move you up, right? And they're going to give you a pay raise most likely when they do that. And they're going to recognize your abilities and your skills. For me, it's more about getting that job, right? It's more about, especially because most of the time, if I'm looking for a job, it's because I don't have a job right now. And so to me, the title doesn't matter. If for some reason I were let go from my current position and I had to find another job, I would be perfectly willing to take a senior developer job, even though I've been a lead developer, even though I've been a director of software engineering, right? I would be perfectly happy to take a senior level developer job as long as it paid me what I needed to be able to live, to support my family. I don't care about the title. I think when we get too wrapped up around the titles and what people are calling us, I think it can hinder us potentially from finding a really good fit for us for the long term, not just for the short term. And I think that's another thing too. We don't often think in terms of long term, and part of that's because of companies oftentimes not lasting very long. Sometimes it has to do with just you as a developer feeling like you've maxed out what you can do at a company, or seeing some other company and opportunity and jumping and going over there. Again, those things are not necessarily wrong and bad. It's just realities of life. And but I'm a long-term kind of guy. I want to stay with a company for a long time. I think a lot of more people do than we give credit for. And so when I'm looking at an opportunity, I'm looking at not just those three things. Can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And will it pay what I need? But fourthly, like, is this a company that I think that I would want to be at long term, that I would want to grow with, that I would want to have my career be connected to in a substantial way, right? And so there's more that goes into it than just, should I be applying to junior level roles? to me, the title doesn't matter. What matters is, can you get a job where you can do the thing, or you want to do the thing, and it'll support you. And then maybe is it someplace that that you feel like you can have some longevity there, that maybe you can move up, that they have a career progression, that they have a process for that. Those are all very important things. And I think really more important than just looking at what is the title of the job. Should I not try for this job because I've been doing this for 10 years? But, I mean, again, I had no idea where I stood. I figured I probably was a junior dev because I had never been mentored. I had never worked at a real company. And yet I really came into the marketplace as probably close to a senior level dev and got paid really junior level money because I didn't know what I was worth. And at the end of the day, it really didn't matter what I was worth. I would be the first to tell you, get as much as you can. You need to know what you're worth. I do believe that. But at the end of the day, if you need a job, like, take the job that's going to support your family, and I don't know. It all comes back to priorities. And I just feel like the job title really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what people think about me in my title. It matters whether or not I'm going to be impactful for them and for that company, and whether or not they're going to like what I do and how I do it. So I would rather even today have a junior dev title, but have the pay that I'm making now, which would be necessary, which would not happen. But I would rather have a lower title and even maybe do some things that I wouldn't want to do, but still be in the industry, still be doing a lot of the stuff that I want to do in that role. So, I don't want to be so blah about it as to say just take whatever you can. I think there is we have a right to be picky, but at the end of the day, it's what are we being picky about? Right. And I think it should be those things like, is this enough to cover my expenses, for me to be able to earn what I need? Is it something that I'm going to enjoy doing? Is it something that I can do? And then maybe if you have the luxury to do so, is this a company that I feel like I can be with for a long period of time and grow with? Right. I think those are the most important questions. At the end of the day, the title doesn't matter. What matters is, do you enjoy your job? Do you enjoy the company you work for? Does it pay you enough money to be able to do what you're wanting to do? And if those answers are yes, who cares what the job title is? I mean, it could be Wizard Apprentice 1 or something like that. It doesn't matter. Who cares? If you're getting to do what you want to do, I think that's what matters, and you can get paid for it. So that's what I would tend to say. Again, I think you do have to be picky. I think for you specifically, Ming, you've seen the ugly side of some of these things, where you've got some companies that aren't really doing well in their hiring practices, and I think that's probably making you gun shy a little bit about some of those lower roles. But again, I think if you've learned from those experiences a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more how to evaluate them, then I think it can come down to those 4 questions as far as helping you determine whether or not the job title actually even matters in the end. So great question. Hopefully my second monologue was it was helpful and encouraging. Again, I don't think necessarily just take the first thing that you can get. Maybe there's some opportunity for discretion in that as well. But at the end of the day, are you willing to work there, and will they pay you what you need? Like, those are the most important things. And if not, can you negotiate a better salary? And if not, then maybe you don't take it. So I definitely think it's a little bit more simple than we often make it. And I think the same thing is true on the hiring side. It's more simple than we often make it. We try to find the perfect candidate rather than finding a good candidate. So, I think the issue is on both sides. So, you know, hopefully that's helpful. Anyway, it has been 30 minutes. So even though we jumped on late, we're going to go ahead and cut it off here at the 30-minute mark. Thank you, Ming, for jumping in and for your question. We should be here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central United States time on YouTube and on Twitch. Here on the Workday Recap, we'll see what other topics pop up between now and then. So have a great. I do have another topic idea for tomorrow, so we'll see. We'll see if we have something else pop up. But thanks for jumping in again, Ming. Thanks for sharing your question, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.